Hello, circle leaders. Good day. Hope you guys are doing well during this time of staying at home or whatever situation you find yourself in. We miss you. It's been a long time apart, and we hope that you're doing well and trust that you're having some good conversations with your families as well as your allies during this time. We wanted to put together a three-part video, 3 weeks of talking about budget and looking into our own personal, where you're at with that, and how do we make it really simple. Our goal here is to not bog down. I'm no expert. I'm not going to get into super banky technology, budgety verbiage here, but I want to motivate you to do this and to really spend some time during this time off of meeting together as circles to talk about that. So why should we do this? What is the point of putting all these numbers on paper? Why would we even go through the extra effort doing this budgeting and things? And I think the basic principle really is just with knowledge, right, comes great power. If you don't know, and when I ask myself or ask somebody, how much are you spending on this, or how much do you need to make to be financially stable? And you just get I don't know, then we just live in this cycle of, living paycheck to paycheck and not really knowing when enough is enough, what type of jobs, what type of income I need to have. So just basically, if you don't know, then we have very little to go on, right? So by putting it down and calculating and being intentional about our family's finances, it can really give us a lot of power and a lot of freedom, right? I know that when you don't know, I don't know what I'll have next month. I don't know if I'm going to make it, or when will the money run out, right? And there's this constant fear and just kind of holding us tight, right? And so the goal of why you budget is really, you just look at it and say, well, now you know what's coming, you know where it's going, and there's so much freedom to that, right? And there's so much freedom to when you know what you have to go to this area, and when that runs out, that you don't have any more gifts to give. It gives you freedom to save without feeling guilty, and it gives you freedom to spend without feeling guilty too. So it gives you kind of structure to your income and expenses in there. So today we're just going to, first angle we're going to take is, I have a couple of documents we're going to show and we're going to share with you, and hopefully you'll be able to get to. But the main thing is we want to keep this super, super simple. And step one in this process is intentional too, is that we first take your dream, the hypothetical. Where are you going with your circle plan, your circle goal? Hopefully, circle leaders, by now you have that sort of written out in your document, in your plan, on what does it take for your family to be financially stable? What type of income does that look like? What are the things I want? What kind of housing and transportation and healthcare and personal care things do I need from my family, whatever that looks like? We all are very different. What does that look like? And where are we at? So, and then that's going to be this week. Next week, we're going to take a little bit of look of like, how do we get there with our income? So today, the only tool you're going to need really for this week's activity is a simple notebook and a pen. Okay, that's all you're going to need. I don't want to be any more complicated. There's tons of budgeting tools out there and things, and they're awesome. But sometimes you're like, oh, where do I put this category? That doesn't fit into my life. And just, what fits perfectly for everyone is a blank sheet of paper. And so if you don't have a notebook, if you don't have scrap paper, let us know. We can get you that this week or ongoing. So all you need right here is a piece of paper and a pen. And how that's going to work is this. So we also are going to set, we have these two budget type activities. We're working on making it, we're streamlining it so we can make it digital for you. But why we're sending this also, after I just said all you need is a notebook, is sometimes if you're racking your brain, what are some categories? So these two sheets that the Bank of Prairie to Sauk, Lauren Olson, is working on for us is just to help you trigger ideas: income, household, mortgage, rent, utilities, internet, phone, cable. Oh, that's right, I forgot about that. Renter's insurance and things like that. Oh, I forgot about that. So these tools are meant just to spark what you need to include. Again, we want to capture it all just on a blank sheet of paper. Okay. So looking at the categories that you have, what we want you to first do is, on your sheet of paper, is just one blank sheet of paper. You're going to just take one category on each page. All right, so you got the first category. Let's say you're going to start, and it doesn't really matter what order you do this in at all, because that's not important right now. So the first category is we're going to start with some basics, right? Like household, right? So what are your household expenses? And there's a reason we're only going to be looking at the expenses today, because that's going to give us a picture of like what we need to make this happen. So when you're thinking about your expenses, the first thing, obviously, you need to live someplace. So you're either going to be renting or you're going to have a mortgage, right? And so what does that look like? And this is where I don't want us to just kind of like dream big and say, oh, I want to live in $1 million house. And so you just write it really big, or I'm just going to live in a shack. But I want us to do some homework, right? So this is where it takes them, what type of house, rent, or apartment do we need? We want to live in a 2-bedroom, we need a 3-bedroom apartment. What does that look like in Prairie to Sauk? We want to live in town, we want to live out of town. Do some research, go look and what some of them are available. So typically, I'm just gonna, for example, you might find a $1,200 apartment somewhere. And so write that in there. Also on your sheet of paper, make notes of that. I want to live in a 3-bedroom apartment. And so then you know how you got to that on this sheet of paper, right? So you can include that note, so then when you're looking back, you know how this is attributed to. So for example, maybe you want to live, you want your goal someday is to own a home, and that's where you have to do some more homework, right? So what is houses that fit your family's needs going for right now and today? So maybe you're looking for a $150,000 house, or you're looking for a house with a $150,000 loan. The really simple things, go right onto your phone, right onto your in your computer, type in mortgage calculators to do the homework. This is where it gets to do, you're gonna have to do some work here, right? You're getting that picture. Currently, if you look online, you can get a pretty good interest rate. You can do the research for that. I need a $150,000 loan. How much do I need down payment? And then it's going to include, make sure your loan calculator online includes like taxes and fees and insurance and things like that. And they have tools that you can just do that. And then, so 150,000, you want 150,000 house is your dream. Make a note of that, why you got to that. And mortgage calculator, if you do that down 30-year loan, somewhere around, I don't know, 1,000 to 1,300, depending on interest rates. So you can do like a $1,200 here, right? Okay. So then rent, and then you're gonna need, you're gonna have a category for insurance in your housing and property taxes, right? I don't know, just check the list, write that all down. So do whole housing, and that's on one sheet, kind of capture your whole goal. And then you'll be able to total that up at the bottom, okay? So then when you're done with housing, you just move on to the next category. So you flip the page and start taking more notes. So you look at what's another category, food, right? So we need to eat, housing, and then we have food. And think about, as a family, how do you want to live? What are you currently living on, and things like that. So if you got, depending on how many people in your family, you have, like groceries. I don't know how to spell groceries, apparently. And what does that equal? So figure out how many people you have in your family, how many dollars a meal. You got 3 meals a day times 30 days a month, and put yourself a dollar amount there. Now you can think about some meals maybe you want to eat out, right? So kind of make a realistic goal of eating out. What is that? So then you have to do, so many meals a day. That's an average of $10 or $15 a person per meal. How many times a month do you want that, right? So write a dollar amount there for that. And you can be creative too. Like our lifestyle for Sarah and I, we grow, we garden, we grow most of our food, our vegetables. So our food budget can be quite low because of things, and it has nothing to do with, because we don't want to spend it on food, is we just have a passion about growing our own food. And so you might have to include other things like, seeds or gardening, whatever else categories you might have to do. Put that all into your food category for your family that way. Okay, so you got food. Other categories that are on here, you're going to need transportation, personal care, if there is health, obviously health care, insurance and medical expenses and things like that. You got to go through and do some research. What would it take for our family to pay for our health insurance out there on a market? Go out and do some research. What is that going to cost per month? Personal things, clothing, like what type of things, what style, what lifestyle do you want to live within clothing so that you're stable, that you're able to purchase and take care of your own that way. So do that here. And then I want to make a point on, you can either put it on this sheet that she has as a tool, but on your notebook, you can either include it in the category. For example, I'll do transportation, or you can include it in a separate category, and you'll understand what I mean here. So we got transportation. That's your new page, right? Okay, transportation. So you have your current, your vehicles that you have, your current expenses, right? So you own a vehicle or you're paying off a vehicle. So if you have the car payment, I would encourage you to buy a car not on a loan, but on cash. So save first. But anyway, if you have a cash current payment, right, and then you need to have current expenses like gas, right? How much are you spending on gas? And you got to have insurance for your car. But this is a very important thing now, so that you don't all of a sudden get down to it and you're like, oh, I need a new car, but I have no money for it. How do I budget for that? And so you have your concept of the future car, right? And how you figure that. So for example, you might have a car now and you're using it and you have these current expenses, but eventually that car is going to die. Eventually you're going to get you're going to need another car. And so how do you plan for that? So I'll just give you Sarah and I, for example, we're in the market of, we buy cars around $4,000 to $6,000 car. That's the market we're in. And it just so happens about a $4,000, $5,000 car only lasts 4 to 5 years, right? So we have to think every 5 years, we're probably going to be buying another car. We can't know for sure when that car is going to die, right? But it's about 5 years. So you put a dollar amount here, right? So if it's a $5,000 car, you write that in your notes in your notebook. We're buying a $5,000 car every 5 years, right? So that's about $1,000 per year, and that's about $86 per month, right? So in our transportation budget, we need to have $86 counted for every month. Now, we're not actually spending that every month, right? That $86 has to go into a savings account so that 5 years from now, this will equal $5,000, right? And so when you're saving, when you're 2 years in, you got to have $2,000 saved there for that $5,000 car that exists somewhere on the world in the future. And so then when your spouse is looking at it and say, wow, we got $2,000 in our savings account. No, you don't. No, you don't. That $2,000 has already been spoken for. It's already been spent on the future car that you're going to own someday. So it's so valuable to budget these future things. That goes with what in your housing category. Maybe there's some future things you want to put a garage on, or maybe you need an extra something in housing, and maybe you're planning for a vacation, or maybe anything in the future you should include in the categories as well. And you see some of those points in the worksheet too that will trigger that. So even if you're not going to spend it in this particular month, it's already treated as if it's already been spent. That money is spent in this month, in the month of April or May, because it's going to be, you're saving it for future, okay? So that's super important. When even if you're not paying for the insurance, you only pay it every 6 months, and it's $600, I don't even know, $600 every 6 months. You should account for $100 a month on insurance, even though you're not paying it every month. So even though your budget should include that's being saved. So then you get to payment day, you have $600 in your savings account ready to go. And so that's important as you're budgeting and doing that. This is your circles thing. So it gets to be fun. If you're married, you get to do so much. Do this together. So important that you do this together. And so during this week, I encourage you to basically look and think, what would our family want when we're financially stable, when we're living the dream and we've reached our circles goals, those accomplished when we reach that that financial stability point in your life. And then after all of that, you're going to work with your ally and get that bottom line. When you add up all of your transportation and you add up your housing and your food and your personal care, you're going to have a bottom line that will be your circles plan budget goal, and that's what you're going to need to work on. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this motivates you to do it, and really all I can say is you just got to do it. Keep it simple. Like we said, just get a notebook. Don't worry about having the right categories, the right order. Just start taking it down, and you can add up those numbers when you're all done. Work on it until you're tired that night, and then pick it up again the next night and talk about it. Hopefully it produces a little bit of good conversation for if you're married. If you're single, just some good reflection and good thought about what you want and what you desire. So yeah, we will see you again next week, and I hope you guys stay safe and have fun, and hopefully we'll be back together real soon. Thank you. Take care.